morning. I'm Carlton Sharp, pastor of Faith Christian Center Church, right here in Beaumont, Texas. And we're here on what's happening in our neighborhood. And today, my special guest is Dr. Dwayne Augustine. Welcome, Doc.
Thank you, Pastor. Thanks for having me.
Hey, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a native of the area, Beaumont, Port Arthur, graduate of Lamar University, and began my career in education in Beaumont ISD, continued that career in Hampshire Fannett ISD, in which I'm currently the superintendent.
Yes, I mean, that's amazing. Homegrown, and now you are the superintendent of Hampshire Fannett ISD.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Doc. Recently, we had a situation in our area called Tropical Storm Imelda, and it impacted all of us.
Yes. Oddly enough, we were here two years ago dealing with Tropical Storm Harvey. Now we're dealing with some of the same issues, just a little bit amplified with Imelda, and our district, like a lot of areas in Southeast Texas, got hit pretty hard with it.
Hey, well, listen, let's take a look at some of the news broadcasts that came out about what happened in Hampshire Fannett, and we'll be right back right after this.
Yes, sir.
Let's tell you some of the information relevant to your recovery tonight as we rebuild and get back on track. Let's go to Hampshire Fannett, where an intermediate school has been hit hard by the flooding. Hampshire Fannett obviously under several feet of water throughout this rain event. Just take a look at this. This intermediate school has been through a lot, several feet of water inside it. The district working out a plan for when they can start back and where the students and the teachers will go as they begin this process of recovery. Just take a look at that as you look inside. Heartbreaking for the teachers who work so hard in this facility.
And this is a first look inside the school there. As the sun sets, it looks like it's setting on a lake, but that is actually the front grassy area of Hampshire Fannett Middle School.
The first time they took that much water, not during Harvey did these folks get hit quite this hard.
Wow, Doc, just to see the damage that was happening, just by Channel 12, just showing the damage that was happening in the schools.
Yeah, I mean, it's reminiscent of that evening before where you watched the rain begin, and then the day after, and then the day after that, we had basically probably just over a 24-hour period where we watched the rain fall and knew because of the amount of rain that was falling that it was going to be pretty devastating.
And nobody even thought that this was going to be as catastrophic as it was.
No, I mean we had no indication and no reason to think that we would have something of this magnitude, particularly on the heels of Harvey. So it just wasn't within our frame of thought, given the magnitude of what we ended up seeing.
And when we're looking at this video now, and we're seeing that I mean the whole area of Hampshire Fannett got devastated. It wasn't just the schools, but the whole entire area.
Yeah. So it was almost as if Imelda, took a funnel and poured a little bit extra in the Hampshire Fannett area, and so with that we saw more flooding in areas that got flooding during Harvey. We saw more flooding than we did with Imelda.
Well, tell us about the impact of the district.
Yeah, so obviously it begins with the devastation of it. We had approximately 10 buildings throughout the district that were flooded, and we're a relatively small district. We only have about 2,000 students, so just to scale that a little bit, a 6A high school has over 2,000 students.
Wow.
So when you begin to talk about a small district with 4 campuses and 2 of those are closed, that's half of your school district.
Wow.
So no matter what your size, half the district is half the district, and so it's a lot of devastation that we're dealing with.
So 10 campuses were affected, 2 of your gyms were affected, the band halls were affected, the cafeterias were affected, the
Right.
agriculture buildings were affected, and the multi-purpose instructional building was affected.
Right, and so when you look at 10 buildings,
Wow.
what you begin to look at is about 187,000 instructional square feet.
Wow.
And so, during Harvey, we didn't have nearly as much square footage damaged and flooded during Harvey. So what that did is that caused us to sort of have to redirect some things in terms of instructionally, how do we get kids back to school? where do we instruct kids, and what kind of partnerships do we have to develop in order to instruct kids for a whole day. And so that's been a real interesting process.
So tell us about the pros and the cons that you had, and of the options that you had to deal with.
So the pros, believe it or not, having gone through this before, even though it's something you don't want to go through, the pros is that we have gone through it before. So we had a template, so to speak, a footprint that we knew we can operate within. And so that helped us to really sort of expedite some of the things that with Harvey we had to figure out. And so, for example, we got back into school after Imelda in 12 days.
Yeah.
With Harvey, it took us 18 days to do that.
Wow.
And so we compressed that by 6 days. Of course, having less instructional space, then we had to do some things differently in terms of how we recover from an instructional standpoint. So what we're doing is we partner with people like yourself, local churches in particular, to use facilities. The churches that had spaces like classrooms, large areas like gymnasiums, things like that didn't get flooded. And so what we have is we have kids that are alternating AM and PM schedules.
Gotcha.
And so if I'm a group of students, for example, that has an AM schedule, I go to a campus for the AM, the PM I rotate to one of the local church partners. And so what they get at the churches is they get things like art,
okay,
PE, recess, and then they get quite a bit of small group instruction.
Got you.
And so kids work in center, so you may have a group of kids doing PE, and then they'll rotate into arts, and after arts they'll rotate maybe to music, and after music they may rotate to some of the small group instructions where they get small group tutoring in math, or this group may be working on reading. And so what we've done is, even though we're going half days on our regular campus, we've extended that instructional time into the spaces that we're using with our church partners.
So actually it's a full day.
It's really a full day.
Yeah.
It's really a full day. Now parents do have the option of not having their kids come for the full day, but of course in the times in which we live in, the majority of our families are two-parent working households.
Right.
We even have our single-parent households where that one parent has to work as well. And so as a school, offering the service that is full day, I think takes that burden off the community. And then of course having community partners come together with space, volunteers, and things like resources and other resources, we are able to provide that service all day for the kids, but extend that learning as well, because it's really important only having that half day of typical campus instruction to be able to extend that beyond those 4 hours as well.
So how long do you believe that this dual track is going to last?
So our estimated time for that, because again, comparing it to Harvey, unlike Harvey, we had additional space that did not get flooded, and so we were able to collapse 4 campuses into 2, but we lost some of that square footage, like I mentioned earlier with the Imelda. So we just don't have the space, and so what that's forced us to do as a district is now we're going to have temporary classrooms, portables is what people commonly refer to them as. And so part of that facility recovery is getting portables in, and that's probably a 6 to 8 week window.
Right.
To purchase them, get them set up. Once you set them up, there's infrastructure that has to be connected, water, sewer, electric. These days, I mean, we're worldwide now on the internet, connecting digital connectivity and those sorts of things. So that whole process will take about 6 to 8 weeks, and then will be full day, typical school.
Okay, but then the getting back into the schools might take a little bit longer.
Getting back into the schools will take a little bit longer because we're doing the process now for the temporary buildings, so we can get kids into school all day long in that traditional setting. Then that process spills over into a procurement process to rebuild what was destroyed by the flood.
Right.
And so just the process of procuring it takes about anywhere from 45 to 60 days.
Wow.
And then the rebuild process will probably take another 4 months. So we're probably looking into next school year before we get back into the buildings.
Yeah.
Just like we were before the storm.
So for parents who are watching today, they may need to understand that the process for the portable is going to take 6 to 8 weeks. So that's going to be around Thanksgiving.
Correct.
Or a little bit after.
Correct.
And then for getting back into school, you're looking at the first of next year.
Correct.
I mean, the next school year.
Exactly. And so really what we're looking at is, 2020, 2021, next school year, like you mentioned, to get back into those physical buildings that were flooded, which is why this year we had to opt for the portables so that we could have normal school within fairly normal spaces where you can conduct traditional, where you can do traditional instruction with the students. Yes.
And so what people need to also understand is your teachers were impacted too. I mean, it's not just the kids, but I mean your teachers and your administrative staff, everybody was impacted by it.
So you bring up an excellent point, because just as our parents are bringing their kids back to school and going back to work, and they're dealing with flooding issues at home, et cetera, our teachers are doing the same thing. And so,
wow.
So what you have is, and we saw this with Harvey again, and we're seeing it with Imelda, you're having double displacement.
Yeah.
So you're displaced from your home, and you're living with relatives, or you're living outside of your normal boundaries, et cetera. But then you come and you also have displacement at work. And so our teachers, just like our kids, they spend 7 to 8 hours a day, sometimes more, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So it's like there are times of the year where you spend more time at work than you do at home. And so to be displaced from both is a pretty traumatic experience. And so both with parents and their students, but also us as administrators with our staff,
yeah,
having to understand the trauma behind events like this. And so there's a lot of work out there being done with emotional and social trauma from these events.
And that's what I was going to ask you. Are you bringing in counselors to talk to the students and to talk to your professional workers, about what they're dealing with?
Yeah, and so what we've done as a district, we employ a counselor that specifically targets students with emotional needs. But part of that counselor's time is also spent working on these sorts of issues as well. And of course, what she has done, we've reached out as a district to other resources. So we've partnered with Spindletop. We've partnered with Baptist Hospitals of Southeast Texas. And so we started our counseling sessions with our staff last week. So last week was both our planning week, but also that healing week and recovery week emotionally for our staff. And so our staff had the opportunity to sit down with counselors beginning last week. That, of course, will continue throughout the whole school year. Parents also have the option to, if they notice signs in their students, and we're putting that information out to parents.
Wow.
There are 10 signs to look for emotional trauma after events like this.
Right,
and
right.
So that information is being sent out to parents and so forth. And if they recognize any of those, then referring their students to us so that we can tap into some of those resources so we can make sure that our kids are taken care of emotionally as well.
Now also, I mean, you're also dealing with the books, all the supplies. Right. I mean, Doc, it's more than just, putting the desk back in.
Exactly. So instructional resources are essential. And so, of course, today, a lot of our resources are digital, and so that helps.
That's good.
But some of those resources still are not digital. And so, for example, if we had low-lying instructional resources, which we had quite a bit of it, well, those items were flooded, and,
wow.
And those, of course, had to be thrown out. And so the process of getting and tapping into those resources so that our teachers have those to use this year is a challenge. We're working through it, and of course, again, we have partners who've reached out, other local school districts.
Yeah.
places like that who we can say, okay, we need 50 of this particular resource, and they'll, pull together, give us those resources, and as we go through our process of recovery, as we repurchase those, we can send those back to those partners who send them to us, and so it's that sort of cycle of sharing of resources that we've tapped into as well.
Now you said earlier that you missed 12 days of instruction.
Correct.
So now have you received a waiver from the state, or are you going to do some makeup days?
So it's going to be a combination of things, because it's like everything else, it's a process. So what it looks like is this. So we take our academic calendar, and every school district has built into its calendar a combination of days: instructional days, teacher work days, staff development days, early release days, and the latter three, staff development days. I mean, those are important, but then when you get down into a time of crisis like this, you end up converting some of those days into instructional days.
Right.
Work days, we typically keep some of the work days because those are important to start and stop. For example, semester, there's a semester break. Well, you really need a work day after the semester to restart the second semester.
Gotcha,
those are important things that are essential that you really can't remove. But we have removed, I think, one of those. Early release days. Early release days are typically used for the same sort of things. So the things that staff development, again,
right,
that may not take a whole day. So you release early. You run a modified schedule. You release early, and then you get one small thing done. Well, we've gotten rid of almost all of those, and so those are the things that we've gotten rid of to add that instruction time that we've lost. And then after that, our board then takes and considers a new academic calendar, which they'll do that sometime this month. That calendar is submitted to TEA along with our request to waive those instructional days that we were not able to make up, and then hopefully the commissioner will grant those days.
Okay. Now let me digress a little bit with your community partners.
Yes, sir.
Are your teachers on those campuses? Are they transferring with the students, or how is that working?
Yeah, so what happens with that is we'll have a group of students who will transfer to one of our community partners locations, and then we'll have a group of staff that will also go with those students. So we have a midday bus shuttle.
Wow.
Yeah, so we've almost, well, it's not doubled our bus routes, but we've increased our bus routes because we are shuttling kids in the middle of the day back and forth, from school to the community partner, from the community partner back to campus, because the start and end is just like normal. So if a student rides a bus, then we pick that student up just like we did, same place, same time. We drop that kid off, same place, same time. If you drop your kid to school, you drop them off same time, same place, etc. Except for those campuses that are closed.
Wow.
Then you go to the alternate location. But yes, we do have staff that go with our students.
Wow, that's amazing. That's just amazing, the work that your staff is putting in, because I'm sure it's a lot of work.
Yeah, so I feel we have an incredible team who spent a lot of hours, a lot of days with both the mental and physical work it takes to work out those sort of logistics.
Right.
The community partners that I mentioned, the time that they spend in, helping with those logistics, so they were part of that planning process as well. Simple things like how do we now not only clean our facilities that are open right now, but how do we help our community partners who did not have 200 bodies in that facility before
on a daily basis.
So that puts a strain on their resources just from a facility standpoint. And so those are the small details that otherwise, without enough minds in the room really thinking about the logistics, those are the things that you would miss. And so what we have, we have setups there at those locations. And so we have a team of custodians who go over and they clean those facilities.
Wow.
In shifts. So it's just little things like that, though, that would normally be missed if you didn't have enough people really focusing on that and really thinking the whole process through.
And that's the good thing about the partnership of a small community like Hampshire-Fannett coming together, working hand in hand to make sure that this comes together?
Yeah, absolutely. And after Harvey and a lot of places did this, we were HF strong, and so we had to be HF strong again.
Yeah.
And this time with Ebola, and so we're getting that done, and it takes the whole community. It really does, and that's not an overstatement. It's not hyperbole. It literally takes the whole community to get that done, and a community like ours is real close knit, and so people are putting on their boots and getting it done.
Hey, in our closing moments, what would you like to tell the parents in the Hampshire-Fannett School District?
Yeah, well, first of all, just thank you, because I think our parents have been excellent partners in this, and we've received, and I told this to our team yesterday, I've received so many positive reinforcements, positive feedback from what we're doing, and our parents have recognized the work that we're putting in, so thank you very much for that. The other thing is patience, because it's a long process, and so just like many things, as the process goes along, we get tired because it's different, it's more work than normal, so we're going to have patience. And the other thing is we are really working hard to extend that instructional time, and a lot of our folks love our district because of the academic success of the district, and we're going to work just as hard this year as every other year to make sure we continue to strive academically as well.
Well, good. Well, listen, I want to thank Dr. Dwayne Augustine for coming today to share with us the integral parts of what's happening in Hampshire-Fannett, and I'm sure that those of you who are in Hampshire-Fannett right now, you appreciate the work that's being done, and it's going to get better.
Absolutely.
It's definitely going to get better. It's just going to take time. And we have to put on patience, and then let's work together to make it happen. So I want to thank Dr. Augustine for joining us. Thank you for joining us on What's Happening in Our Neighborhood. And we will see you next time on our broadcast.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.